In this video, you are getting 7 exercises that can replace your entire gym routine. Every exercise is backed by EMG research showing exactly which muscles it activates and why it outperforms the alternatives. You will see which single back exercise beat every other in a head-to-head study, which pressing angle covers the entire chest without needing 3 separate movements, and which overlooked exercise trains your core, grip, traps, and legs all at once. If you want a shorter, smarter program that still hits every major muscle group, this is the video that gives it to you. Exercise number 1, the barbell back squat. Everything on this list rests on the barbell back squat. EMG research has ranked it as the single most effective lower body exercise, and the numbers tell you why. 74% maximum voluntary contraction in the quadriceps, 52% in the glutes, 43% in the hamstrings, all during the ascent phase alone. 3 major muscle groups, under serious tension from one movement. And here's the thing about the squat that separates it from everything else. It adapts. When researchers tested competitive bodybuilders across multiple squat variations, a wider sumo stance drove greater vastus lateralis and adductor longus activation, while front squats produced the highest glute recruitment during the lowering phase. That means the squat is less of a single exercise and more of a framework you can reshape depending on which muscle is falling behind. Stability plays a role that machines completely strip away. A study comparing free barbell squats to the Smith machine recorded significantly greater quadriceps and hamstring activation with the free bar. And the reason is straightforward. When nothing guides the bar path, every stabilizer from your ankles to your upper back has to fire just to keep you standing. And that coordination transfers to every other lift you perform in the gym. Deep squats with proper form have been shown to strengthen the connective tissue around the knee rather than break it down. And the deeper you descend with control, the harder the glutes work and the more resilient the joint becomes over time. Fear of depth has stalled more lifters than any actual knee injury. Leg presses, leg extensions, hack squats, and most machine-based lower body work all become unnecessary when the squat is programmed correctly. This one movement does not just develop muscle, it lays the structural base that every other exercise on this list depends on. Number 2, Romanian deadlift. The squat handles nearly everything below the waist, but it has one gap that most people never close. Quad and glute activation dominate the movement, while the hamstrings contribute without ever being the primary drivers. And that imbalance compounds over time. A systematic review published in PLOS ONE analyzed EMG data across multiple deadlift variations. And what it found about the Romanian deadlift was specific. Activation shifted toward the biceps femoris and semitendinosus, the 2 primary muscles of the hamstring group, because the slightly bent knee and hip hinge emphasis place maximum stretch and tension squarely on the posterior chain. That deep eccentric loading under stretch is the exact stimulus tied to the greatest hypertrophy response, since the muscle is being challenged at its longest position where growth signals peak. Most lifters are quad dominant without knowing it. They squat, they leg press, they lunge, and their hamstrings quietly fall further behind with every session. Weak hamstrings sit behind a huge number of knee pain cases, lower back strain episodes, and athletic injuries. And the Romanian deadlift goes after that weakness without any detour. The conventional deadlift looks like it should cover this, but the same systematic review told a different story. Erector spinae and quadriceps showed greater activation than glutes and hamstrings during conventional pulls, which meant stacking a conventional deadlift on top of heavy squats just piles on more quad and spinal erector volume you do not need. The Romanian deadlift fills the actual gap by loading the muscles the squat leaves undertrained. Holding the bar in position also demands serious grip strength and upper back engagement, so you are getting more total body stimulus than any hamstring curl machine could provide. Leg curls, good morning, stiff leg variations, and machine-based hamstring work all become redundant. One movement, and your posterior chain goes from neglected to fully addressed. Number 3, pull-ups. If you had to pick one upper body exercise and abandon everything else, this earns the spot. 117% maximum voluntary contraction in the latissimus dorsi during EMG testing, which means the lats were firing harder than what researchers recorded during a controlled maximum effort test. On top of that, the middle trapezius reached 92% and the rhomboids reached 86%, and no other single movement comes close to recruiting that much back muscle at once. Here is the part most people miss. A study comparing lat pull-downs to biceps curls found that both produced similar biceps growth over the training period. And since the chin-up loads the biceps through the same pulling pattern as a pull-down, it can meaningfully develop your arms without a single curl ever showing up in your program. Grip position changes the emphasis in a way that gives you 2 exercises from 1 bar. EMG data showed the chin-up produced significantly higher biceps brachii and pectoralis major activation than the pull-up, while the pull-up drove more lower trapezius recruitment. Supinated grip loads the biceps and chest harder. Pronated grip shifts the demand toward traps and upper back. And between those 2 hand positions, you have covered lats, traps, rhomboids, rear delts, biceps, and forearms from a single piece of equipment. Band-assisted. Variations and slow negatives lasting 4 to 5 seconds per rep provide the same recruitment pattern for beginners who cannot manage full reps yet. And once bodyweight sets become comfortable, strapping on a dip belt turns this into one of the most scalable exercises that exists. Lat pull-downs, most cable row variations aimed at lat development, and direct biceps isolation all lose their purpose once heavy chin-ups and pull-ups are in the rotation. If you are still doing 4 sets of curls after weighted chin-ups, your arms are almost certainly getting more volume than they need to grow. Number 4, bent over row. Pull-ups dominate lat width and vertical pulling, but they leave the mid-back, traps, and spinal erectors short on direct work. That is the exact territory where the bent over row takes over. An ACE-sponsored study lined up 8 common back exercises and measured EMG activity across 5 muscles: the middle trapezius, lower trapezius, infraspinatus, latissimus dorsi, and erector spinae. The result was clear. If someone had to pick one back exercise, the bent over row was the best option because it ranked first for 3 of the 5 muscles and second for the remaining 2. None of the other 7 exercises in that study came close to matching that across-the-board performance. Separate research from McGill found that the standing bent over row produced large, symmetrical activation from the upper back all the way down to the lumbar region, and it generated the highest spine stiffness among all rowing variations tested. That means the movement actively trains your spine to resist flexion under load, which is a direct investment in long-term back health that a cable row on a padded seat cannot replicate. Free weight bent over rows also outperformed machine and cable rows for erector spinae and multifidus activation. And the reason mirrors what happens with free barbell squats versus the Smith machine. When no track or cable guides the load, your body picks up the stabilization demand, and that extra work separates real strength from controlled pump work. One thing deserves respect. The bent over row produces the largest lumbar spine load of any row variation, which is not a reason to skip it, but a reason to earn the right to load it heavy. Neutral spine, braced core, and a weight that allows clean reps without your torso rising on every pull. Seated cable rows, face pulls for trap and rhomboid work, and lower back extensions for erector loading all become optional once the bent over row is paired with pull-ups. Pull-ups carve the width, and rows pack on the thickness. Number 5, lateral raise. Every other exercise on this list is a compound movement, and this is the single exception. It earns that spot because no squat, press, row, or pull anywhere in this program directly trains the muscle responsible for shoulder width. The lateral deltoid creates that wide capped look from every angle, and no pressing movement loads it hard. Enough to do the job. When an ACE-sponsored study tested 10 common shoulder exercises, the bent arm lateral raise was one of only 2 movements that produced the highest medial deltoid activation. The dumbbell shoulder press dominated the anterior deltoid but fell short for the lateral head by a wide margin. A separate study put numbers on the gap, showing lateral raises reached 30% MVC in the medial deltoid compared to just 5% from the bench press and 3% from dumbbell flies. Pressing movements barely register in the muscle that actually builds shoulder width. Competitive bodybuilders were tested across multiple lateral raise variations, and the neutral hand position with thumbs pointing forward produced the highest medial deltoid activation. Internal rotation, where you tip the pinky up, actually shifted more work to the posterior deltoid and upper trapezius while pulling stimulus away from the side delt, which meant the form most lifters already use. Turned out to be exactly what the data supports. Neutral grip, controlled tempo, raised to roughly shoulder height. Here is why this matters in the context of this program. The low incline dumbbell press already covers front delts and triceps as secondary movers, and an overhead press would have doubled up on those same muscles without solving the side delt problem. The lateral deltoid has zero coverage from anything else on this list, and without this exercise, it is the one muscle group that gets completely ignored. Upright rows scored poorly across all three deltoid heads in the ACE study, making them easy to drop. Cable lateral variations and machine-based side delt work also become unnecessary. One isolation movement fills the only opening the 6 compound lifts leave behind. Number 6. Low incline dumbbell press. Most lifters either flat bench or steep incline without ever questioning whether a better angle exists, and the research says one does. When 5 bench inclinations were tested, upper pec activation peaked at 30 degrees, while the middle and lower portions recorded their highest numbers at 0 degrees flat. What matters is what happens between those 2 points. At 15 to 30 degrees, upper pec recruitment climbs without killing mid and lower chest activation the way a steep 45-degree angle does. And that gives you meaningful work across the entire pectoralis major from a single position. Biomechanical analysis backs this up. As bench angle increases, upper pec fibers stay active, but lower pec contribution drops off steadily. A flat bench loads both regions well, but a steep incline sacrifices the lower chest without pushing upper pec activation much beyond what a slight incline already delivers. 15 to 30 degrees sits in the exact range where you gain upper chest emphasis and keep everything else firing. Now here is where dumbbells change the equation. EMG testing found the dumbbell bench press activated the pectoralis major to a greater extent than the barbell bench press, and 2 factors explain why. A deeper stretch at the bottom of each rep places chest fibers under more tension at their longest length, which is where current stretch-mediated hypertrophy research points to the strongest growth signal. Bringing the dumbbells together at the top increases peak contraction in a way that a fixed barbell path cannot match. So you get a fuller range of motion on both ends of every rep. Triceps activation stayed consistent across all bench angles in the research, which means choosing the incline over flat costs you nothing on arm work, and front delts engage as secondary movers throughout the press, accumulating shoulder volume without a dedicated exercise. Flat barbell bench, steep incline press, and chest flies all collapse into this one movement. One angle, one tool, and the entire chest is accounted for. Number 7. Farmer walk. Nobody expects this pick, and that is part of what makes it the smartest entry on the list. Picking up heavy weights and walking looks like nothing special, but the research paints a completely different picture of what is happening under your skin. Stuart McGill, one of the most referenced spine biomechanists in published literature, measured EMG activity during various strongman events and found that carrying exercises activated the stabilizing system in ways that no squat, deadlift, or press could replicate. With every step during a farmer walk, the lateral core muscles, the quadratus lumborum, and the obliques had to stiffen the pelvis to allow the opposite leg to swing forward. That is real core training under load, not a plank held in a static position where nothing moves. A 2025 EMG study added more detail to the picture. All upper limb muscles showed progressive increases in activation as farmer walk load climbed, with the supraspinatus, triceps, and forearm flexors reaching maximal activation levels at heavier loads. Traps are fighting to keep the weight from dragging your shoulders down. Erectors are firing to hold your torso vertical. Forearms are gripping at near capacity, and legs are propelling you forward under serious resistance with every single step. What McGill specifically noted is the part that matters most for programming. Loaded carrying enhances lifting-based strength programs because it challenges abilities that traditional lifting does not develop. Squats and deadlifts train force production in a fixed position, But the farmer walk trains stability while your body is in motion under load, and that is a demand most programs never touch. Grip strength ties into something bigger than gym performance. Large-scale research has consistently linked it to overall health, longevity, bone mineral density, and reduced cardiovascular disease risk. And the farmer walk develops grip more directly and progressively than anything else on this list. Shrugs, planks, wrist curls, and most direct core isolation work all lose their reason to exist once farmer walks are in the program. This is the movement that binds every other exercise on this list together. Here is how to program all 7 exercises with just 2 sets each, split across 3 days per week. Day 1 is your push day. Start with a low incline dumbbell press for 2 sets of 8 to 12 reps. Then follow that with lateral raises for 2 sets of 12 to 15 reps. 2 exercises, 4 total sets, and your entire chest, front delts, triceps, and side delts are covered. Day 2 is your pull day. Open with pull-ups or chin-ups for 2 sets taken to 1 or 2 reps, short of failure. Then move into bent-over rows for 2 sets of 6 to 10 reps. 4 total sets and every muscle in your back, plus your biceps and forearms are trained. Day 3 is your lower body and carry day. Start with barbell back squats for 2 sets of 6 to 10 reps. Follow with Romanian deadlifts for 2 sets of 8 to 12 reps. And finish with farmer walks for 2 sets of 40 meters heavy. That is 7 exercises and 14 total sets across 3 sessions. If you want more volume for specific areas like arms or calves, add a dedicated session or slot extra work into these days. Run a 4-day split, throw in direct curl and calf raises, and customize around this foundation. These 7 are the base. Everything else is optional. Now, if you want to know the only 3 arm exercises you actually need to build bigger arms, watch this video next.